All right, Harry, we're in Matthew chapter 14. It's the section where John the Baptist just got beheaded by King Herod. Let me go ahead and read verse 12. It says, John's disciples came and took his body and buried it. Then they went and told Jesus.
Yeah, there was a lot going on for Jesus and his disciples at this time. In verse 12, we read that John the Baptist disciples have come to Jesus to tell him that John has been killed by Herod and they have buried the body. In the next verse, we read that Jesus withdrew by boat to a solitary place to ponder the loss of his best friend, a hard day for Jesus. Then in the next verse, we read that Jesus has been discovered in that new area and a large crowd comes to see him. So he has compassion on them and he heals their sick. This goes on all day. Jesus has no time to mourn. In this remote location, thousands of people are listening, fellowshipping, and Jesus is healing both their bodies and souls. No one is watching the time. Now it's late. The disciples are concerned. Send the people away. Jesus says, feed them first. The disciples say, we only have 5 loaves and 2 fish. That's enough. Have the people sit down on the grass. Jesus thanks the Father for his constant blessings. Then Jesus broke the loaves and fish, and the disciples had a huge job feeding about 500 people each. It says that they fed 5,000 men and women and children. And it says they were all satisfied. So they were all staying for the evening? No, not at all. Can you read 22 to 24, please?
Yeah, it says this. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it.
Yeah, so no time to relax. Jesus sent the disciples away immediately. And they rowed and rowed and rowed. The wind was against them, and they were on hold in the middle of the lake. Jesus spent his time visiting with God, his Father. All day he was too busy, and then he fed the crowd. Now it was his turn to pray, to love his Father. It would soon be morning, time to catch up with the disciples. Jesus walked across the stormy sea to them. That's impossible. No one can walk on water. What about feeding the 5,000? That's impossible. What about healing their sick? Also impossible. Let's go back to 4,000 years earlier when God in Jesus made all creation in 1 week. Jesus was there also impossible. So now Jesus catches up to the storm-tossed boat with his friends. They are truly bone weary and feel weird. Jesus alone without Jesus. There's someone walking on the water, and it's Jesus. Peter, not stopping to think, asks for permission to come to Jesus. Only one word from him, come. Peter is walking on water to Jesus. Peter soon sees the waves, loses faith, sinks, but is rescued by Jesus. Could you read verse 34 to 6, please?
Yeah, it says, when they had crossed over, they landed at Gennesaret. And when the men of that place recognized Jesus, they sent word to all the surrounding country. People brought all their sick to him and begged him to let the sick just touch the edge of his cloak. And all who had touched it were healed.
So they had spent all the previous day ministering to the 5,000. They spent the whole night in the boat. Then they landed safely. Now it's back to work, walking to Jesus. It's a full life. I love it.
Yeah, and it's really impressive to think, right? He just got news of his John the Baptist, his closest person. He says no one has ever lived who's been as greater of a person as John the Baptist. And he just found out this news that he's died. And then we just see a full-blown ministry take over within 24 hours after. Quite astonishing after, isn't it, Harry?
Yeah, there's no let up. Jesus' ministry was like that, and the opportunities are like that today. So it's a real privilege. There's no shortage of opportunity walking in God's world.
Amen. Thanks a lot for this, Harry.
Thank you.